Successful Minds with Patricia Baronowski-Schneider, the show that takes you around the world to share interviews with some of the most successful and relevant people on the planet. Hear their stories and get the most important business lessons they have learned on their road to success and get exclusive advice on how to implement their success into your life and business. Successful Minds with Patricia Baronowski-Schneider is brought to you by the Strategic Advisor Board and your host, Patricia Baronowski-Schneider.
Hey, are you looking to scale your business from 5 figures to 6 figures or 6 figures to 7 figures? If you are, I have the perfect thing for you. What I want you to do today is I want you to go download a book. This book is going to take you through my 3-pillar system. It's 100% free. All you have to do is go to growfast.cash. I say again, go to growfast.cash and you're going to be able to download my free international best-selling book, which is called Be Good, Be Brief, Be Gone. You can take that book. It's going to help you scale your business to the next level. Again, go download it. Be good, be brief, be gone. Growfast.cash. I say again, growfast.cash. Enjoy.
Hello, and welcome back to Successful Minds. I'm your host, Patty Baronowski-Schneider. Today, I'm joined by Keeper Catran-Whitney. So welcome, Keeper. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you for having me, Patricia. It is an absolute honor to be here from East Coast to West Coast. Yay! Let's do our thing. As Patricia said, my name is Keeper Catran-Whitney. I am the author of the book, Helplessness: The Emotional Health Challenges Brothers Experience After We Learn Our Sisters Have Been Sexually Abused by Our Story. It is a brother's story. It is my family's story. And that's what I do. I look to elevate the voices of brothers who do not have a voice in the child sexual abuse space, to bring attention to the burdens and the stresses and the anxiety that we carry in silence.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely, a major unique story because, like I said, you always hear about women. You never hear from a family member because normally, especially when it comes to a family, it's all shunned upon. You can't speak, you're going to make us look bad, blah, blah, blah. But hey, what about the victim? So definitely a unique story that you have.
Well, I think it's always best to begin at the beginning to give people some context. But one of the things that I do initially is ask people, have you ever wondered what emotional challenges brothers experience after we learn our sisters have been sexually abused? Chances are you've never even given one thought, never even given it a consideration. And very few people, if any, do, because our role in being collateral damaging as a brother is that you're not going to care all that much. You're not impacted, but that is far from the truth.
Right.
So let me tell you how this all began. In 1971, living in South Central LA, my family was incredibly poor, living in abject poverty. I went to 11 grade schools before I graduated high school.
Wow.
I lived in 21 different places before I moved out, homeless 3 times. And we were constantly on the move. So in 1971, my mother, who was an absolutely amazing singer, decided she was going to start singing with her brother and sister, something they used to do in their younger years. As good as they were, Patricia, they weren't able to bring enough money in to help us do what we needed to do to get out of this poverty situation. This is around the time that Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5 were blowing up. They're everywhere. They're on Ed Sullivan. They're just all over the place. Every child in the world wanted to be the Jackson 5.
Right.
And my mother would hear us singing around the house, and she got the idea of, would you guys like to sing? Because as a singing family, we could make more money. We're like, yeah, sure, of course. My family is a family of 10. My mother, my stepfather, 4 boys, 4 girls. I am child number 2. I have an older brother, followed by an older sister, and then a brother, and then so on and so on. The 2 youngest are a set of twins. So we start singing. The next thing you know, we are singing it after our nightclubs all over Los Angeles. It is amazing. We are singing, going to school, rehearsing, sleeping over and over and over again. This is in the midst of a gang infested area, but that's what we were doing. That was our ticket out. One Saturday, we're rehearsing and the phone rings. My mother picks up the telephone. Hello? Who? Say that again? Okay, hold on. She looks at us and says, Michael Jackson is on the phone. Looks at the brother number 3, the fourth of us, and says, he wants to talk to you.
What?
Yeah, that Michael Jackson, soon to be king of pop, wants to speak to my brother and has called our house, and we can barely make an $80 a month rent. I'm going into the streets looking for bottles to turn in so I can get a pound of ground beef or a bag of rice so we can eat. That's what our life was like. And now here we have the most popular singer in the most popular group in the world calling us. My brother gets on the phone. Hello? You know, he's all excited. Couple of minutes later, hangs up, screams, Michael Jackson said he's heard of us. Said he heard I sing and dance just like him. Keep going. We will get there someday. Now, I ask you, what child, let alone what poor child, couldn't dream of a better life after that? Jump cut to 1977. 6 years later, we are everywhere. Magazines, TV, concerts, we are everywhere. We are also with United Artists Records at the time.
Nice.
During 1977, Motown, who had the Jackson 5, they lost him 3 years earlier to Epic Records, has just completed an exhaustive 3-year search to replace Michael Jackson and Jackson 5. And guess who they settled on? Us.
That's amazing.
We were the group who replaced them. So imagine this, 6 years earlier, Michael Jackson calls our house and says, keep going, you will get there someday.
Right.
To now replacing him and his brothers at Motown. Everything we could possibly imagine had just dropped in our laps. Fame, fortune, everything was right there. I like to say the bus was outside. All we had to do was step onto the bus and we were gone.
Right.
So the week we are going to sign the contract, end of the week, Thursday or Friday, we are all excited. But the Saturday before, my sister screams upstairs, boys, come downstairs, family meeting. Now, for you viewers of this show, my topic is child sexual abuse. This can be very triggering for you. By all means, protect yourself. By all means, do what you need to do. Patricia's show will be here for you to pick up on this particular show. But it will have some emotionally challenging moments in it, particularly around sexual abuse. All us kids run downstairs, go into the living room. I'm the last of the 8 to enter. When I enter the living room, my 3 youngest sisters are sitting at the far end of the couch. They're huddled like this, which was really odd because all they did was talk. All they did was make noise. All they did was tease everyone. That's all they did. In fact, that's all 8 of us ever did.
Right.
But here they are in the far corner of the couch, and I'm coming to the living room. I'm like, what's going on? We are about to become stars now. My oldest sister is pacing back and forth in front of the entry to the living room, and she's angry, and as I pass her, but that wasn't all that odd, Patricia, because she and my mother would get into it, or all the time. So they were loggerheads all the time. But she's angry. My 2 youngest brothers are also sitting on the couch, and they are like me, confused by the reaction of our 4 sisters. We don't have a clue what's going on.
Right.
We are about to sign with Motown. Are you serious? Possibly the greatest recording company in the world at that time. Everyone wants to be with with Motown. My oldest brother is standing at the far end of the couch behind my sisters, and I lock eyes on him. He's like, I have no idea. I take a seat next to my two brothers on the couch. My mother and stepfather enter the room. When you enter the room, our living room, there's a bright green carpet. It's hideous. What makes it even more hideous is the brown recliner that clashes against the color of it. It is horrible. So my stepfather walks over and sits in the chair and immediately bends over and does this. What the hell?
Yeah.
What? My mother, who's usually very bubbly, effervescent, just like her children, always singing, always humming, just energy full of it, is looking like this. Stoic. Giving us nothing. She walks to the front of the room and stands next to a really large window that overlooks the street. Now, the only reason we can even afford this house is because United Artists is paying the rent. We can't afford it.
Right.
But as part of our contract, we're going to give you a better place to live at this time in 1977. She turns around, scans the room, and looks at her 8 children, stopping at my oldest sister, and is looking daggers at her. Now, earlier that day, my 4 sisters were going in and out of bedrooms, and we could hear raised voices. And at one point, my mother joined them. Voices got louder. I have no idea what they were talking about. It's just the girls and my mom, and they're just doing what they do.
Yeah.
Okay. But apparently, this agitated bees environment that they were in is about to be exposed. My mother, who's standing in front of the window, is about to utter the words no brother could ever prepare for. She's about to utter the words no brother ever expects to hear. Now in California, Patricia, as you probably know, we get earthquakes all the time.
Right.
Trees are uprooted, homes rack back and forth, freeways. But you put those things back together, they're material earthquakes. A little bit of rebar, concrete, hammer, nails, pop, 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 pop. Everything's good. Get back to work. Go back in the house. But emotional earthquakes, emotional trauma, different story altogether. You almost never recover from those. At best, you are able to put them in a manageable place where you can regulate your emotions accordingly, just so you can get through the day, get through the moment, get through your life. But they are with you forever. We are about to be hit with 3 emotional earthquakes, my 3 brothers and I. My mother says, earthquake number 1, your stepfather has been molesting your sisters for years.
Wow.
What? Wait a minute. What did you just say? I am
Like
stunned.
goosebumps.
I am shocked. I'm in disbelief. Wait a minute. And I begin to drop emotionally. PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, starts to settle in on me. And I'm sure my 3 brothers as well. Because we are expecting to hear, we're going to sign on Thursday the largest new artist contract Motown has offered anyone. And by the way, they have the TV show, which I have the pilot episode in my office. They have that ready for us. It's going to be a variety show. All of this was in place. But we are told your stepfather has been molesting your sisters for years. Now, my stepfather's 6'6", 250 pounds. He wore a massive afro wig that put his height at over 7 feet tall. My little sisters, when all this started 6 years ago, the year Michael Jackson called our house, were 5 and 6 years old.
Mm-hmm.
My oldest sister, she believes, was 10 or 11. That's earthquake number 1. And I am dropping into this very dark abyss.
Mm-hmm.
There are no handles. The descent is just speeding up. Then my mother says, I have known all along.
What?
Oh, no, no, no. This cannot be happening. Not us, not our family. All around Los Angeles, we are called the perfect family. Everyone who knows us and sees us wants to be us. Parents come to us and say, we want our family to be like your family. How can we be like your family? People want to emulate us. And now everything has been flipped upside down. Shock, as I said, guilt, anger is just suffocating me. And again, I'll say my 3 brothers, my sisters knew what was coming.
Right.
Because that's what they were talking about all morning long.
Right.
They were forcing my mother to tell the boys today is the day they need to know before we do this contract with Motown. Then earthquake number 3 happens, and it is the most devastating one of all.
Yes,
My oldest sister, who had been passing back and forth from the archways, turns around and points at her 4 innocent brothers and says, you can't talk about it. It didn't happen to you. It only happened to us girls. You can't talk about it ever. And like that, relationships between brothers and sisters that were so incredibly tight lay broken on the living room floor. So you're a brother and you just heard what your mother just said. It's devastating. You don't know what to do. But then your oldest sister essentially locks you down for decades. When you are told you can't talk about it, what I heard and what my brothers heard is that you don't matter. Your voices don't matter. Nothing you say or do matters, but do not ask us anything about it. The people we needed to speak to the most just told us no. All walls went up. I understood later what my sister was doing. She was protecting herself. She was protecting her sisters. But for me and my brothers, we had nothing and no one. And in 1971, you could go into any bookstore, you can go into any library, Patricia, you could find reams of articles written by women, unfortunately. The only reason why you have so many books and so many articles by women is because of what men have done to women historically since the beginning of time.
Right.
So you have articles, you have books, you have movies, you have documentaries, you have counseling, you have support system, you have tools for women and girls, but absolutely nothing for brothers.
Right.
In 1977, it was the same thing. So for me and my brothers, where were we to go? Who were we to talk to? Usually when you're children, I'm around 16 or 17, but because all we did was sing and dance, my maturity was much younger. We weren't in the streets running around and picking up a lot of the social skills that you do to help get you through life, particularly as a teenager and as a young adult.
Right.
Where were we to go? The people that we trusted the most, the people who were the most important, most powerful people were committing the crime. And the people who were being victimized, our sisters just told us, we want nothing to do with you. Now, I will mention one other thing, and I'm sure you'll have questions and you can ask me whatever you want, because helplessness, my book, is about elevating the voices of brothers, giving us a platform, letting sisters and family members and law enforcement and clergy and everyone know that we are in pain and we still need support. Oftentimes when I'm speaking at an event, Patricia, invariably there will be a woman who will say, of course, you can't talk about it. It didn't happen to you boys. It only happened to you sisters, to your sisters. Well, the fact of the matter, it did happen to us. It was happening to us, and we just didn't know about it. And certainly when we were told about it, it was definitely happening to us. But 6 years prior to my sister's sexual abuse, my older brother and I were sexually abused by our babysitter almost daily.
Oh my gosh.
6 months. I was 6 and he was 7. So I say that not to normalize or to not give the proper weight and attention to what my sisters go through. It's only to say I do understand. So when people, particularly women, tell me, you don't get it, you don't understand. Yes, I do. I understand both sides of the child sexual abuse coin, the damage and the collateral damage. So for brothers, even today, there are still no tools and support system. We are, as my sisters would say, you cannot come to the conversation. However, you are expected to answer for your non-participation. Those two things cannot exist in the same space. It's like a paradox. They really should not be existing in the same space, but they do. And that's the challenge for brothers. That's shame and guilt and fear and anxiety, confusion, and you're in this emotional crisis over decades because you want to talk, you want to express yourself, you want to understand, but you're constantly rebuffed at every turn. And so my story is about a 40-year journey as a brother to recapture my self-esteem, to recapture the love of my sister during all of this, as mistakes were made by me, which are in great detail. What I did and did not and could have and would have and should have done is in great detail in my book, but it gives you a family view of what happened. And I say family view because once I started writing Helplessness in 2013, 3 of my sisters contribute chapters to the book.
Let's get on the word out.
2 of my brothers contribute chapters. We had traveled that far, and they understood the mission of the book was to elevate the voices of brothers, but also give people a real family view of what happens in this situation. It is not a People magazine article. Do not be confused. It is not flowery in any way, but it is book 3, book 1 of a 3-book series, from helplessness to hopefulness to happiness. I'm writing hopefulness now, which is how do you find hope in that situation, to happiness, where I am right now. So that's how things began, and that's where we are.
I'm just like blown away by all of this. I mean, it does affect everybody because, you have, whether a father, stepfather, father figure, you look up to them as a child and you want to be like them, and they're your idol and blah, blah, blah. And now you're kind of getting slapped in the face like, wait, what? That's not who I want to be. That's not who I want to look up to, let alone now you have the anger of you've hurt my family. And then your mom, who was supposed to be this loving, supportive person, knows about this. Now you're totally confused and you're like, where am I? What's going on? Is this like, you would think, is this totally hidden video? Like, it's serious? I mean, I could just imagine the confusion, anger, hurt.
There's a chapter in my book called The Parent-Child Contract. And this is to your point about my mom. And what that chapter is about, when a parent first sees their child, it doesn't matter which child it is, number 1, in our case, number 8, when you lock eyes on that child, you know that is divine creation. You will do anything. And it's not just the mother, it's the father as well. Because when I saw my son and my daughter, it was like, oh my goodness, I will walk through fire for you. I will walk through hell for you. It's not even a question. I will never let anything harm you. Right. And so the whole chapter is about that. And it's about how brothers and men don't have the same connection as women, because obviously we didn't carry the child, and it's a very different emotional experience for women. But men, we have this same reaction when we see them. It is mind-boggling. It is crazy And yet, for my mother to have 8 children that she would walk through hell for, to betray us, not just over those 6 years, but in subsequent years after 1977, she continued to do things with him that was this constant betrayal. And so, uh, because a brother has these very deep protective instincts, we want to lash out. We want to fix something. But for us, it's very difficult because, first of all, we didn't know. And second of all, we were told you can't do anything. And that lockdown experience by my sisters, putting us on a shelf in the closet and tucking us away, stopped us from even talking to each other, me and my 3 brothers. We never brought it up until 10 years ago. But there was a lot of trauma in the middle of that. And for me, as the trauma built and built and built, it took me 9 years to finally do something, because 2 things. My mother said she would handle it, and my sister said don't do anything. And my sister didn't want us doing anything. And the truth of the matter is, my mother said she would handle it. The truth of the matter is, it was a warm blanket for me. It meant I didn't have to do anything. I was a brother who, okay, you just step aside and I will take care of it. But as time went by, my self-esteem and my self-worth was crumbling. And 9 years later, I almost killed my stepfather. So, part of the biggest challenge for brothers is no one ever asks if we are okay. We don't even get that. No one ever asks, do you need to talk? No one ever says, let me help you try to get through it. It never happens for brothers. And in the United States, there are some 44 million adults walking around who have suffered child sexual abuse, and those are 44 million that have been reported.
Right.
It is much bigger. And when you have that many that have suffered child sexual abuse walking around, and this is just the United States, this is a global epidemic.
Right.
When you have that many, every abuse comes with collateral damage. A sister is going to be impacted, a brother is going to be impacted, someone, the entire family is going to be impacted.
Right. And your whole life down the road, spouses, children, you can't bury emotional feelings. They're always there and they just get bigger and bigger. That's why you have to kind of find a way to let it out, because it'll affect your whole life.
Absolutely correct. Because particularly for brothers and men, where there are no tools, there aren't even any tools specific to us today. The trajectory of the men we grow to become is always dependent on the help or support we do or do not get. So imagine you're a little boy and you are hearing this, or you are seeing this, or you are experiencing this. A number of things potentially and usually happen. You become hypersexualized. Your respect for women is diminished because you can grow to think, oh, that's the norm. That's the way it's supposed to be.
Right.
My mother didn't have a problem with it. My stepfather didn't have a problem with it. Oh, okay, this is the way I'm supposed to treat women.
Right.
You then have this impact with every female relationship that you have. Your spouse, your sisters, your mothers, your co-workers, your daughters, your nieces, all of them are impacted by your inability to cope emotionally. And because this type of emotion, this sort of trauma, I view it as it's DNA. It's part of your DNA. It is in you. And like DNA, it becomes self-replicating. And like some replicating DNA, it could be cancerous. It could be life-threatening. It can be incredibly dangerous. And so emotionally, that's where we go. Today, there is a lot of talk about mental health. And I don't believe most mental health challenges are mental health challenges. I think they are emotional health challenges. Now, this is my logic behind it. Mental health is singular. It means you are alone. It means you're isolated. It means the problem is solely yours and no one else's. And that's how we treat it today. In our discourse around mental health, this is how anyone who does something, it could be, and we've seen many things. I'm not going to get into it, but it's always that person is suffering from mental health. Well, what happened that put them on that mental health challenge? It's usually something emotional.
Right.
The emotional health means it's a shared experience. It is community. It is bringing other people in. Well, the mental health is easy to solve. Let me write you a prescription. Let me send you to counseling. Let me give you this pill. Let me give this upper, this downer. Let me give you whatever you need because your problem is not my problem. It is not the community's problem. You are solely on an island by yourself doing whatever you're doing. But because that person did not get the emotional help, did not get the community to come in and help, did not get the inclusion of support, then we go to isolation, which becomes the next step, mental health. You now are alone. You are now isolated because no one is going to help you. And like me, 9 years later, mine became so mental. I was locked in a place 3 months before my wedding. I almost killed my stepfather because I did not want him to be around my sister.
Mhm.
So there's psychological and emotional impact behind this. And my thing is to elevate the voices of brothers, try to create support system, make people aware of what we are dealing with and what we are carrying.
Looking to grow your business beyond 5 figures, 6 figures, 7 figures plus? What I want you to do is go download this book. The title is called Be Good, Be Brief, Be Gone. It will help you grow your business past 5, 6, and 7 figure. Go download the book today. Growfast.cash. I say again, growfast.cash, and download the book for absolutely free.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's, whenever you see, like, believe me, I was in abusive relationships and whatnot, and you always wonder, like, this didn't just happen overnight. Like, this obviously
Mm-mm.
came from someplace, and there's zero, and you see it, not just one person, you see it, how they treat other people, if any issue, and then the emotional effect on the people that they're abusing also. It's
Absolutely.
kind of like there's like a trickle effect of everybody it affects. And unfortunately, like even going to like counseling, like you say, there's almost nothing for men. Or they're just popping pills. That's it. We'll just give you something to make you
Yeah.
happy. And that's it. That's not really getting to the root of the problem. And
Well,
like
we're
you
starting
see,
to
it
see
ends up.
celebrity. We're starting to see celebrity men come out and talk about their sexual abuse that is of direct impact to them,
Right.
which is a great thing. It is amazing that celebrities, actors, singers, sports figures, everything, we were starting to see some younger political figures, males, now talking about what happened to them. And it's a great thing because it is an inclusion type of support. Just by talking about it,
Yeah.
it brings other people in it. It makes them aware of not only what they are going through, but also, you know what? Because so and so is talking about it, I feel more empowered to own my space
Right.
and talk about it. Well, what I'm talking about crosses race, religion, wealth, politics, social economic lines. It crosses borders. It crosses waters. It goes everywhere. And I didn't realize just how big it was until two occasions. I was down in San Diego doing a talk when three women came up to me afterwards and told me, I wish I had spoken to my brother more about it. These are three separate women at three different occasions. They don't even know each other. But what they told me that chilled me to the bone was because I did not tell my brother everything, he took his life because he felt so much guilt and shame. And she said, I wish I had known about your story years ago. He would probably still be alive because I could give him your book and we could both learn from what you and your family went through. The other story is my father-in-law, who passed away a couple of years ago, 95 years old, read my book, and I didn't know he was going to read it. He read it. Now, my father-in-law and I, we come from very different backgrounds. He's white. He's Jewish. Grew up in New York. His family was middle class. He created a great business for himself. It did very, very well. I'm Black. I'm poor. I grew up a rebellious Baptist. My education, as I told you, was not good, and we were not middle class by any stretch. But he read the book, which I was surprised. I didn't expect him to read it. He knew a little bit about it, but no one ever wants to talk to me about it. It's not a happy subject. So he calls me to his house. He says, come over, I want to talk to you. So I go to the house, and I notice immediately my mother-in-law is not there. Now, my father-in-law and I, we have a great relationship. He was the father I always wanted. Because my biological father was worse than my stepfather. He beat my mother all the time, drug addict, all this stuff. Here, I've got this older white guy, Jewish, and he has no son. So me and my two brother-in-laws are, in effect, his sons. But he and I had a special bond, which I cherish because not only did I not have that, but I understood the differences between he and I, what that really meant for him and our family. At one point, we took a family picture, and his family is now so diverse because of me and my wife. His children all of a sudden started marrying all kinds of people out of race. He shows this picture of he's got family in Brazil, and he says, "Look at these people. They're so white. Like, you have got to be kidding. Before I knew you, that was you. What are you talking about?" He's got all this pride in having such a diverse family, and it was spectacular. So back to going to the house. I sit at the dining room table where he's at, and he pats the book and says, "I want to talk to you about your book." I said, "Okay, Dad." I called him Dad. I loved calling him Dad. It was one of the greatest feelings whenever I said it. I knew I was always going to call my father-in-law Dad, but I never expected to call some white Jewish guy Dad and feel so much warmth and embrace about it, and so much pride about it, because I knew what we were representing between the two of us. So he says, as he pats the book, "I want you to know I understand." And I said, "You understand what?" "I understand what you're going through." "Okay, what do you mean?" "I'm going to tell you something you cannot tell anyone until I pass away. I have not told anyone this except my wife, your mother-in-law." "Okay." Now, I have no idea what he's about to say, but my mind was going at warp speed. I am traveling from 0 to 120 with what I think he's going to say in a nanosecond. He says, "When I was in my early teens, we lived in an apartment, two-story apartment. We were downstairs. Our best friends lived upstairs. That family lived upstairs. We were so close as family, we left our front doors open 24 hours a day. We would come and go in each other's house all the time, every day. We did everything together. One day in my early teens, I go upstairs I'm sent upstairs to get something. And I walk through the door and there's no one in the front room, but I hear sound coming from the bedroom. I open the door and the father is molesting my older sister. I stood at the door and I froze. I didn't know what to do. I turned around and went back downstairs, and I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell my father.
No.
I didn't tell my mother. I told no one. And I am just sitting there not knowing what to say because I know that story all too well. He then says it happened again a few months later, and I did the same thing. I want you to know I understand what you are talking about, what you're writing about in this book, that brothers are carrying so much hurt and trauma and burden because we don't know what to do. He starts to cry. And it hit me how important and how big this really is. Because as I said, it crosses race, religion, and politics. You know, we had the same political view, but we grew up differently in so many ways. And yet here we have a 95-year-old man who is actually dying at the time, wanting and needing to unburden himself from this emotional trauma. Now he's 95. He doesn't owe anyone an explanation. He doesn't need to say anything to anybody, but he wants to let me know. He wants to get rid of this. He wants someone to see him. He wants someone to hear him. And he comes to me. Now, granted, because I wrote the book, but he could have spoken to any number of people.
Could have left a note. Yeah, he could have did whatever he wanted to do.
Yeah, but he comes to his Black son-in-law and says, I understand. And the tears that are dropping down his face are, to me, not only tears of sadness, but they are tears of the unshackling, the weight lifting of this particular burden, that he should have done something. He's 70 years later thinking about I should have done something. I went 9 years and I beat myself up. Now imagine you're a brother walking around today and you're thinking no one understands. I understand. My father-in-law understands, and so many other men understand. And in elevating the voices of brothers, I try to bring an understanding to sisters and women to say, we are in pain. We can help each other by talking to each other. And instead of being enemies, we can be allies. So I talk all the time about how do we go about elevating the voices of brothers so we could be part of this conversation, as I said, so we could stop being uninvited to the conversation, but being expected to answer for our lack of participation.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, you always know women who go through this and women who go to therapy, but even them, they don't say anything. They're ashamed, they're embarrassed, or they're not believed and all that stuff. You never hear of a man. And even if they did, I'm sure they feel guilty. They feel they should have did something, or then they feel it really didn't happen to me personally. So who am I to complain? You know, and you feel guilt about feeling guilty. And, you know, I'm sure it's just a whole whirlwind of
I
issues.
didn't recognize that I was in trauma until I was 57. I didn't even recognize what my babysitter had done to me. And yet I would speak to my brother, older brother, about it because that was our shared experience. But I didn't recognize that as being sexual abuse until one night, writing a particular chapter in the book, and I'm sitting in bed with my wife, and I'm talking to her about a particular passage that I'm finding very difficult to write. And she turns to me and says, you know, you're a victim. And I look at her, no, I'm not. Yes, you are. All of you boys are victims. What are you talking about? I'm just sharing with you what I'm writing in the book. No, I'm not a victim. Look at you. You are sitting here, you're sweating, you're shaking. You could barely get out what you want to say. How do you not see you are a victim? And it was in that moment that I realized I was a victim, not just of direct child sexual abuse, but indirect. And as you just said, men, because of our societal propping up, society and us doing it on our own, we believe we always need to be King Kong. We need to always conquer. We need to always hunt. And we'll say, well, the women, they're more emotional. I call BS on them. Women aren't more emotional. Women, to me, they are better balanced with their emotions because they are willing to share and express. Mm-hmm. Whereas men, because we do not talk about it, whether we look at it as such, that is toxic masculinity. Right. The inability to share emotionally who we are and constantly believe this construct that we are greater than what we are emotionally. Mm-hmm. Women have the ability to speak to each other in ways men just do not. And part of that is, you know, society building that up for women too, and then giving them permission. There's no doubt that that's a part of it. Right. But women are so much better at it, and men, we're absolutely horrible, and it traps us. It paralyzes us, and we aren't as good at communicating not only with other men, but just women. Yeah. My older brother has a saying around this that I think is a very good thing, speaking about the differences between men and women. My older brother has a saying that if you are a man today, in just about in any era, any generation, you should assume that every woman that you know, just assume it. Don't even give it a second thought, just at face value. Just assume that every woman that you know has been sexually abused and operate from there. Because if you operate from there, you're more tolerant, you're more understanding, you're more passionate or compassionate. You are so much better in your approach and how you communicate in relationships. Because the fact of the matter is, so many women have been sexually abused or they know of someone who has been sexually abused, just assume it. And that's, he mentioned that, and that was such an eye-opening statement for me. So I also think it should also be assumed, because 1 in 6 boys, men, have been sexually abused, that everyone should just assume that every man is carrying some sort of sexual trauma, some sexual abuse, whether it's true or not. But it is the foundation for creating conversation and asking questions.
It's great that you're opening that up, because it's always, you know, people are ashamed, they're embarrassed, they don't want to speak about it. But it's kind of like, I'm a big fan of like Law and Order SVU, and it's always like you have these rape victims, and you know, they're always like, well, we need more. And it's that one person who comes out and starts talking about it, everybody's coming out of the woodworks. So this is giving, because especially in the male, like you say, it's masculine to talk about my feelings or to say I'm hurt and I'm upset. It's just, the cliche is just ridiculous. But having someone to say it's okay and you're not alone, there's plenty of people that are like you. Now that opens up the door for people to say, oh my God, thank God, I thought it was just me, you know. And like I said, when it happens to a woman, nobody even thinks about the guys, you know, because it's kind of like it didn't happen to you. You have no idea what I'm dealing with, but you're dealing with it in your own way with different issues. You know, you might not have been sexually, well, in different situation, but you might not have been sexually, but it's emotional. The trust is there. There's a lot.
I think it gets to be kind of dangerous. And I notice it with my sister when we start to normalize a particular gender's abuse. You know, when we start to try to compare apples versus oranges, trauma is trauma.
Right.
And even within women, the trauma that impacts you will impact your friend differently. It may impact your sister. It may impact your mother in a very different way. It is very individualized. And when we start to compare gender versus gender, we get into these ratio conversations, and it's ineffective. It doesn't serve anyone.
Right.
The greater conversation is, how do we help each other?
Right.
How do we move forward? How can I help you? I was asked yesterday in a podcast, Keeper, when you talking about it, is this healing for you, or is it healing for the people you are sharing your story with? And my answer was, it's both
Yeah.
at the same time. So when a woman talks about it, she obviously is looking to help herself, but other women can live through her. Other women can say, I get it. I know exactly what you are talking about. They may not speak up on their own, but you give them comfort. You give them understanding. And the same thing, we need to have more men talking about it happens for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's wow, it's a crazy, crazy story. But it is helpful, and it's good that you're doing these books and series where you're showing people the before, during, and after. Well, it sucked. Here's all the bad stuff. Here's how you're getting through it, and here's how you can have a happy ending. So I think that's absolutely amazing. So you have your 3 books. You're 1.5 right now, right?
Right,
Okay.
right.
And what else are you working on? Anything you're working on, or that you want to talk about that we didn't touch on?
Well, I was there's obviously a lot here. I was in a 4-hour podcast yesterday. They just talked about 4 hours. It went on and on and on. And everything was a unique conversation.
Right.
But helplessness, obviously, the book you can get at Amazon. Helplessness is now the screenplay is being written
No
for it.
way. Wow,
Yes,
congratulations. That's awesome.
I am shocked that the
That's
studio in
awesome.
Hollywood wants to explore, can they make a movie or a TV miniseries out of it? So they're writing the screenplay, and maybe one day soon, you will see the story of helplessness
Wow. Well,
on
see, even they
TV or in
realize
the
the
theater.
impact and how it could potentially
Yeah,
help so many people. That's great.
yes. And I'm doing a lot of talking. I'm doing a lot of speaking at events and things, and there's just a lot swirling around right now. So, uh, but what that says to me, Patricia, is exactly what you just said. People want to hear. It's not your same old story. It is different, and it gives people that aha moment, like, I never thought of that. I never thought of what my brother might be doing, what my son might be carrying, what my nephew might. I never even considered him.
Yeah.
What pain, what trauma is he going through? And that's really what this is about. How do we bring us into the conversation? When everyone else is talking and they take that momentary pause to exhale, brothers step into the gap and own the space and say, look, this is what we are dealing with. We need help. We need tools.
Yeah. I mean, even with like abusive relationships, like when you hear the stories of a dad beating a mom and or vice versa, you never know. But if the kids see this, it's kind of like, you don't know the trickle effect that has on them. They don't want to see their mom getting hurt or the dad
It's
that they looked up
generational.
to, blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Yes, it is generational. Me watching my father, biological father, do what he did to my mother. It easily could have been handed down as normal behavior. Luckily, me and my brothers did not pick up that baton and run with it. But we had another opportunity with our stepdad, because that was reinforcing what my dad did, my biological dad did. So we easily could have said, oh, if our father did this and our stepfather did this, that's the way it's supposed to be. Again, none of us picked up that baton and ran with it. We said, we are stopping that right here.
Yeah, good job. Well, I guess, how can people get a hold of you, learn more about you, find you, and all that good stuff?
Well, I appreciate you asking. People, they could reach me on Facebook, Keeper Catran-Whitney, TikTok, Instagram. There's the same thing. For those people who might want to contact me directly, they can contact me at keepercw.author at Gmail. My assistant will look at all those immediately. And I am just available to talk. Because one of the things that we have learned over this time as I've been doing speaking, law enforcement is interested in this conversation, civic groups, schools are interested in this conversation, political leaders look at it of how can we begin to create some legislation that not only helps brothers but helps families in a broader way, because this really expands the conversation. So there are many applications, many conversations, and now something I completely was not ready for. Leadership companies are calling me because they're saying you have been put in life-threatening situations, and yet you came through.
Mhm.
How did you do that? Because a lot of the decisions and things you had to make are the same types of conversations CEOs and business leaders. So I have to consider and do risk versus consequences,
Right.
resolve, and all these sort of things.
Right. Yeah.
Like this is what you do all day.
Hmm.
So that's how you reach me, and this is what I do.
It's ironic that you mentioned the schools, because it is true. The schools, I don't even know what age they started now, but they'll do like sex ed and stuff like that. But they don't talk about anything beyond that, about what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. How do you handle this? What do you do? And for both sexes, I mean, they should be, especially as you said, this is such a common thing that people are just unaware of. You should show
I
people how
don't
to be
know if
prepared.
I don't know if there's time, but there is a particularly profound story around that in schools that I could tell you really quick if you want to hear it.
Sure.
I was going into a grocery store a couple of years ago, and there's a very affluent school by us. I mean, money is just dripping from that school. As I was going into the grocery store, there were some high schoolers outside the door selling baked goods, raising money. And I decided to stop as I usually do, because if there are kids out there selling something, I'm going to help them because I know
Yeah.
what that's like. So I asked them, why are you raising money? And they said, we're working on a school project that we need to complete by the end of the year. We have to pick a topic and create a movie around it. I said, okay. What topic did you come up with? And these high schoolers said, child sexual abuse in the home. And I said, well, excuse me?
You were in
They
the right
said,
place at the right time.
we are doing a docu-movie on child sexual abuse in the home where parents are sexually abusing their children. Because so many of our classmates and some of us here have been sexually abused by our parents. And so I asked, what did your school have to say? Now, this is a very rich school.
Mhm.
It is predominantly white. So this has nothing to do with race.
Yeah.
They said the school was furious that this is the subject that we chose, because they said, we do not want that discussed in a docuseries that anyone can watch. They will learn about our school. And their response was, this is what's happening to us. You are more concerned about the
Oh, it makes
image
them
of the
look.
school
Yeah.
as compared to the trauma and the abuse. We high school students, and this is boys and girls, are suffering in the home. We are doing this. So you're absolutely right. The conversation needs to be had in schools. It needs to be understood that every time a school hides this, they are putting at risk more and more children every day simply for they don't want people to know about it.
So
It's,
not right. And
yes, happens all the time. Schools everywhere.
I mean, when you hear the expression of so and so went postal, that's a lot of
Right.
built up stuff that just didn't come up out of nowhere. They didn't just wake up one
Yeah.
day and say, screw it. And, I just saw a video this morning of a girl, people were saying how you have to take notice. It was someone who was so happy go lucky and posting videos and blah, 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 and committed suicide. So they did like 1 month before, 3 before, up until like 2 hours before. You never saw the signs because you're told you shut up, you don't make the family look bad, blah, blah, blah. So you're trying to put on this happy face, but deep down inside, you're crumbling. Yeah. Yeah.
That was us. That was us. Don't say anything. You're not going to be able to sing. They're just dangling carrots
Yeah,
and
to look bad
threats
for
and
us
things
as a
like that.
group. And
Right. Those sort of threats. We don't want the family looking bad. No.
yeah, I hear that a lot with people I know in the situation. Either they don't believe, or you're looking for attention, or the same thing, I'll handle it, but nothing ever happens, and it's kind of like how, you lose all your sense of respect. I mean, you feel like you're worthless, blah, 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 and now you're not believed.
Absolutely.
So how is that going to help somebody grow up and be a functioning adult when you make them feel like crap? Like, they deserved it. It never happened. You're a liar.
Right. You take away their emotional worth.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, their emotional worth, and you make them mentally alone, isolated,
Yeah.
and they're going to do something.
And I could only imagine from the male perspective where you just feel completely helpless. I mean, I just think it's, even though it wasn't physical, you still have the emotional, like you feel helpless. You looked up to somebody, and now, okay, that was wrong, but now I can't say nothing. So I'm not allowed to say anything. I obviously don't have anything good to say, apparently. All of this is going through you, and you're just stuck in a corner because it didn't happen to you. Not that exact way, but it still happened to me at the same time. Just
Trauma's trauma.
yeah.
Trauma's trauma.
Oh, what a shame. Well, I'm so sorry that all this happened to you, but I'm so happy that you're doing this book and raising awareness on this. And I hope it becomes a movie. It'll be my next Law and Order show that I'll be watching every night.
Who knows? We may come back and talk about it.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I'm totally game for it. Very
Okay.
nice. Well, thank you again for being on the show. Again, that was Keeper I can't even speak today. Keeper Catran-Whitney. So thanks for listening to Successful Minds with Patty B. Never miss an episode by subscribing. So thank you again.
Hey, we all want to scale our business. Hey, I have the answer for you today to help you do that. If you're looking to scale from 5, 6, even 7 figures and beyond, book called Be Good, Be Brief, Be Gone. I'm going to give it to you for free. All you have to do is type in growfast.cash. I say again, growfast.cash, and you can download the book for absolutely free. I hope the book helps you this year. Take your business to the next level. Again, go grab the book, growfast.cash. I say again, growfast.cash. I wish you the best and grow, scale, and win.
Thank you for listening to Successful Minds with your host, Patricia Baronowski-Schneider. Please leave your feedback and visit strategicadvisorboard.com to get the latest and greatest business advisement on the planet. Follow us on social media for updates, and we'll see you on the next episode.
There it is. Magnum. Holy moly.
Yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for!
Dear God, it's beautiful.